I almost lost my mind this morning when I woke up to, once again, another incredibly, profoundly annoying, like unimaginably annoying Twitter moment, new Twitter moment. Okay. Community notes. Okay. Community notes on first this, which I guess didn't take, they took it down. So they tried to community note this. This morning when I woke up, I saw this. Visegrad24, the Polish government-backed right-wing fascist account that became a prominent fixture on Twitter for its loyalty to the NATO adjacent struggles that were going on. They were doing like a lot of coverage in Ukraine, and it gained a lot of prominence, right? It's a frequent misinformer. Like everybody with a little bit of know-how understands that it is just a rampant misinformer, abuser of like other people's content. Okay, they do a lot of fake news, right-wing slanted fake news. I'll cover this part in a second. Now, one of the things that they did as a idiotic, here's the Nazi community note here that they deleted, but they were so these fucking losers on Twitter are so unimaginably bent out of shape that they community noted this. And then they tried to community note this one as well, which apparently, because like the other one got taken down, so they tried to community note this one. So, Visegrad24 posted, example of U.S. air superiority from Operation Desert Storm. The Houthis would benefit from not pushing buttons. First of all, you're Polish. Okay? What are you talking about? Like, there is no it's not Polish air superiority, my friend. It's American forces. These were coalition forces. You had nothing to do with it. Okay? How about you calm the fuck down? That's number one. And number two, it's a war crime. You have posted a war crime. Just because it is not considered a war crime because America did it does not change that reality. So, here's the thing. I said this was an American war crime on retreating forces and civilians called Highway of Death, where A6 intruder jets bombed the front of the vehicle column to cause a pileup, boxing in thousands of cars. They kept bombing for 10 hours straight. You Polish government-funded fascist freak. Then I said, I hate these animals so much. They have nothing to look forward to other than fantasize about America doing war crimes to victims of colonial violence with funds that could instead go to paying for hospitals, roads, and schools. Which was a broader point, not specifically about the Highway of Death in general. Okay? And he said, enjoy your community note. Which is funny because once again, the second community note just was entered when the first one was taken down. So that's the other funny part. And I can't even see it, which is also ridiculous. But it's like, also, the rule about retreating militants is that they are fair game under international law. We can say that international law is fucking wrong and that bombing the fuck out of retreating troops is a war crime. Yes. Here's why. Okay? The notion that you can blow up retreating troops unless they are literally retreating to a better position is that, yes, under international law, that's a position that is, that goes back and forth. If America does it, obviously, everyone, if America does it, they can do it, right? That's allowed. That's how international law works. Other countries, they do that. When the Russians do it, that's a war crime. So just remember that, okay? Now, having said that, the reason why this is a particularly egregious war crime that these fucking animals are posturing about and fantasizing about, right? And again, this is the maximum copium because this first thing that I mentioned was directly a war crime that they added this community note to originally. Okay? Here's the community note. I tweeted about it as well. I said, I love the community noters on this app because just not reading their own links, I suppose. The Wikipedia page they source from actually agrees with me. Because notice I said it's a war crime on retreating forces and civilians called the Highway of Death. They linked they linked Wikipedia and the International Human Law databases. Okay? The Wikipedia page they linked to tell me that this is not a war crime, actually, and totally just, actually says that it is very likely to be a war crime. The attacks were controversial, with some commentators arguing that they represented a disproportionate use of force, saying that the Iraqi forces were retreating from Kuwait in compliance with the original UN Resolution 660 of August 2nd, 1990. Okay? And that the column included Kuwaiti hostages and civilian refugees. The refugees were reported to have included women and children, family members of the pro-Iraqi PLO-aligned Palestinian militants, and Kuwaiti collaborators who fled shortly before the returning Kuwaiti authorities pressured nearly 200,000 Palestinians to leave Kuwait. Activist and former United States Attorney General Ramsey Clark argued that these attacks violated the Third Geneva Convention, Common Article 3, which outlaws the killing of soldiers who are out of combat. Clark included in his 1991 report, War Crimes, a report on the United States war crimes against Iraq to the Commission of Inquiry for the International War Crimes Tribunal. Okay? Every community note on here just going forward is literally this. It's 100% correct. Every community note is like, yeah, it says that it's really interesting that you're saying that this was a war crime, but what if I think it was cool? Because I'm a neck-bearded, mouth-breathing racist. Here's another absolute psychopath. Lamau, bombing retreating military forces is not a war crime, you bootlicking authoritarian clown. You think the retreating invasion forces are to be treated like non-combatants under Geneva Conventions? That's absurd. Read a book, you fucking moron. I'm begging American leftists, please learn what a war crime is before opening your stupid mouths. The first Geneva Convention was signed in 1949. There's generally no excuse for your ignorance. Hasan says Wikipedia agrees with him because it cites the opinion of Check Notes Saddam Hussein's lawyer. Oh shit, dude. I didn't realize that automatically made me go, oh, Saddam's a bad guy. We agree. Which means that automatically everyone that was killed in that process was a valid kill. The only reason why I posted the Wikipedia note is not because I learned from Wikipedia that the highway of death was a war crime that was never prosecuted. The reason why I posted the Wikipedia page is because that's what they posted. The inherent irony of posting a Wikipedia link that blatantly undermines the position that you have is the hilarity here. Not that it's like the most reliable source. Which, by the way, I, of course, mentioned in the tweet. So the question here is, are you that fucking brain dead? Are you that stupid? Or are you maliciously presenting this in a way that you can channel all of the frustrations that many liberals have on Twitter, where they want to turn around and claim that, like, no, this is another American bombing that was perfectly valid. You did just say they were fleeing when the law, Adam's lawyer says they explicitly can't carry firearms if fleeing, which they did. You need to stop screaming people are idiots when they're explaining how you're wrong. Once again, retreating forces, which included refugees and other civilians, retreating forces in civilian vehicles with refugees and other civilians after a suspension of hostilities is being followed on is not an appropriate bombing target. The fact that Americans knew that, still blew up the front of the column and boxed people in and simultaneously continued to bomb them, okay, is completely unacceptable. The notion that this is actually perfectly valid of a target. In my opinion, the fact that like many liberals, like this fucking moron, okay, like this fucking moron is doing, shows me that the liberals have lost it completely. The anti-war liberals, was it for 10 hours the bombing happened? For 10 hours, they were bombed and also shot at by ground forces as well. There has to be a Russian-Ukrainian version of this that Russia did, okay? Because Russia does a lot of America shit. I suspect that there has to be a Russian version of this that this fucking dumbass 1,000,000% correctly called a war crime, okay? That's it. Bad legal takes jumps on the dum-dum train. This is not a bad legal take. What the fuck? Oh my God, I'm losing my mind. Control F highways for the section on this. Middle East Watch obtained eyewitness testimony about apparently indiscriminate attacks on civilian vehicles on highways in Iraq, with the exception of one attack on a bus traveling from Kuwait to Iraq, in which 31 civilians were killed. These accounts described incidents that took place on the Baghdad-Amman International Highway in western Iraq, from which missiles were being launched into Israel. Civilian vehicles on other highways in Iraq were also destroyed in Allied attacks. Is this Highway 8 and 80 or not? Yeah, they use cluster bombs, by the way. That was the other thing, which is insane. But, you know. They are going to say you hope for a Russian version of the Highway of Death. That's going to happen 100% because they're disingenuous. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Russia operates in a very similar capacity to the United States of America. So the likelihood that Russia has conducted similar war crimes is very high. And that person very clearly, if said thing did occur, would absolutely call it a war crime because it did. Because, I mean, it is a war crime. That's it. You want to know why I know that? Because in the popular Call of Duty franchise, one of the last games, they did actually attribute the Highway of Death to Russia. And they, of course, called it a war crime because it was. Yeah. U.S. scrambled to shape the view of Highway of Death. The U.S. Navy Silver Fox bombing squadron snooped beneath low clouds north of Kuwait City in the early hours of February 26 and suddenly found itself overlooking an attack pilot's dreamscape. More than 1,500 Iraqi tanks, armored vehicles, jeeps, water and fuel tankers, ambulances, tractor trailers, and passenger cars clogged in a traffic jam on a six-lane highway headed north. First of all, it wasn't even a fucking traffic jam. They caused the traffic jam personally. Fire and shrapnel exploded on the highway as bombs fell from the Silver Fox Squadron's A6E, which I also mentioned. Okay. The Baku-Rostov highway bombing was an incident which occurred in the village of Shami-Yurt in Chechnya. Two low-flying Russian aircraft carried out repeated rocket attacks on a large convoy of refugees trying to enter the Russian Republic of Ingushetia through a supposed safe exit route. The attacks killed or injured scores of people. Russia surrounded and killed retreating Ukrainian troops at the Battle of Iovaisk in 2014. It is very often cited by Ukrainian nationalists as an example of Russian brutality. Ukraine, Russian assault kills fleeing civilians. Continuous shelling. No, they're going to say that the guys are not actually fleeing civilians. They're Arabs, so they're all enemy combatants. That's the point here. The major point of contention is that it's not just an entire column of military members. There are literal civilians. There were refugees. That's the whole point. He's not gonna care about Chechnya. Yeah, you hate on Russia for no reason. He's not gonna care about Chechnya. No, I know. I said that I'm sure Russia has done something similar to retreating forces in Ukraine. Okay. Anyway. And therefore, if there is such a thing, which I'm sure has probably happened, he would absolutely present that as a war crime because it is. Okay? Anyway. The notion that people are defending this is genuinely psychotic to me, though. The idea that, like, so many people were incredibly galvanized and, like, ready to be like, you're so dumb. Like, it's insane to me. We are fully at the stage of, like, you know, Americans are so brain broken. Civilians, even potential hostages. I see so much Iraq war apologia. Guys, the funniest part about this, let me tell you something. The funniest part about this argument, the funniest part of this contention is that this isn't even like Iraq 2, okay? This is the other one that, like, pretty much everyone agrees was really fucked up. That's the thing. People love the Gulf War even if they didn't like the second one. No, this is the one aspect of the Gulf War that they think is, like, fucked up. The Gulf War pretty much is you know, it's nothing overall. This is the one aspect this is the one aspect that, like, everybody recognizes is not great. They think it's valid because Iraq invaded Kuwait. Yeah, exactly. But it's just like, it's still ridiculous. I can't even show you. I mean, but okay, never mind. There is not, like, it doesn't show you everything, but good, because there's, like, charred humans and shit stuck in between the cars and whatnot. So I have to clear it to make sure that you don't see it. I don't know. I do personally think that this is genuinely a scary prospect that people, like, the American government itself, considers this bombing to be, obviously they're going to say it's not a war crime. They're always going to find a justification for it. But the fact that, like, even the American government themselves were like, okay, never mind. Maybe not great. And now, like, liberals are turning around and defending it aggressively is wild. 1,500 tanks. How is that civilians? I already mentioned to you that it is a column of retreating forces and also civilians. I don't think people see it. Bro, you don't have to argue about the details of it. It's a war crime. They're going to go full lawyer mode and argue the specific wordings and shit. The point is that it's immoral. And if it's not a war crime, it should be one and the laws need updating. No, but it is. You can make the argument that it is definitely a war crime. That's the other part of it. Even from the legalese side, I very carefully used my words, which they are avoiding, to make it seem like this was just, you know, tanks that were repositioning so they can attack again and again. Not that, like, they were retreating forces, as even the fucking Wikipedia page posts. Can you imagine what they say if those are American troops retreating from their invasion of Iraq? Yeah. Except you can never imagine that because America doesn't fight battles with, like, serious states that have, like, active militaries, okay? America is the cop in the story. So they operate like Uvalde. They don't go in when there's actual people who can fight back, usually. with like a similar level of violence. They only fight when they have air superiority. Anyway, I am Kuwaiti, and those Iraqis didn't deserve to be bombed brutally like that. Yeah. Yeah. This came after a UN resolution, like the retreat. They're making it about bombing retreating military forces when the war crime is bombing retreating military on infrastructure that's being utilized by identified retreating civilians. Yes, it's also in like civilian vehicles as well. And not only that, but the way to justify it is by saying, no, we had actionable intelligence that the civilian vehicles were being, used by Iraqi soldiers. Okay. And that, once again, no, it's not poop on Kai's bed. You made me look. That guy's pro-Palestine too, by the way. So it makes us, yeah, okay, dude. Liberals are only pro-Palestine as long as Palestinians are perfect victims. Okay, the moment that you don't consider a Palestinian to be a perfect victim, liberals will be just as, just as aggro. Ridiculous shit. Guy has gotten a hold of the poop sock. Yeah. All right. Yeah. By the way, this is the other thing. This was a coalition of British forces that actually protected the retreating ISIS fighters and their family members out of Raqqa. Something to think about. Something to think about. Cool stuff, though, overall. War crime apologia hour, baby. Yeah, to Idlib, which in Turkish-backed forces' hands. Yeah, I don't know how we got here. Honestly, like I know that, like, I mean, I joke about like how ferocious and bloodthirsty liberals are for the most part, but like, at least there is supposed to be like a plausible deniability usually. And I think that they have gotten increasingly more bloodthirsty as of late. You know what I mean? Like it's a real mask off moment for a lot of these dudes, you know? It's specific to Twitter, I think, and Twitter drives news media discourse. Yeah. Twitter has definitely gotten way, way worse. Iraqi forces were attacked for invading Kuwait. Iraqi occupation had been long-term adverse impact on the health of the Kuwaiti populace. Okay. You should just go into Iraq and kill them too then. Oh, wait, we did do that. Well, not this Polish fuckbag. He didn't do shit. He's just sitting there jerking off like I said in my original tweet about America's violence against brown people. You're not even arguing with them. You're arguing the propaganda they regurgitate because the U.S. went crazy trying to cover these things off. If you read further into it, which you properly did, you'd see they literally scrambled together lies of things again and again and again. Yeah. The bombing demonstrated one grim irony of the brief ground phase of the conflict, that a war undertaken to drive Iraqi forces from Kuwait ended with some Iraqi troops desperately trying to leave the emirate while U.S. forces held them in place and destroyed them. The U.S. military officers said their main purpose in pounding fleeing Iraqi troops was to protect Allied forces elsewhere on the battlefield by cutting off potential recruitments for the Iraqi Republican Guard divisions north and west of Kuwait. In retrospect, some officers say the doomed Iraqis crowded on the highway, many of whom had loaded their vehicles with loot stolen from Kuwait, probably wanted to go home to Baghdad, not reinforce the Republican Guard. Even this, by the way, even this still leaves like a level of, yeah, these guys are actually bad guys. Okay? Like, oh, they had stolen loot. None of that, by the way, is a real justification, for the record, on retreating forces after a fucking resolution has come and they're literally fucking leaving. Okay? They're literally retreating, and they're retreating alongside refugees and other civilians. Okay? You can't do that. While the bombing was an act of war ordered by Allied field commanders seeking to protect the troops on a dangerous battlefield, it was also the focus of a public relations campaign managed by U.S. Central Command in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. A campaign designed to shape perceptions of the war's last and most violent phase, which culminated in the near total destruction of Iraq's army in Kuwait and southern Iraq. The northeast of here, more than 400 charred vehicles and dozens of bodies marked the 50-mile... It's not even dozens, by the way. The bodies are, I think, like some estimates were around 300. Some estimates go all the way up to 600. Okay. But yeah, where another fleeing Iraqi, more than 400 barks, the 50-mile stretch where another fleeing Iraqi convoy was destroyed along a second road that connects the Kuwait town of Jahra to Iraq. But the highway of death, as the road near Mutla has come to be known, may be something of a misnomer. It is now apparent that more Iraqis fled in their vehicles and were taken prisoner than were killed by the U.S. bombing of the highway. There are still no reliable figures on precisely how many people were killed in the convoy, but reporters who visited the scene as bodies were being collected say the most they saw on any one place was 40, and they estimated that a total of 200 to 300 Iraqis may have died at the scene. The following reconstruction is drawn from interviews with Kuwaiti witnesses, U.S. field commanders and soldiers in Kuwait, officers with the U.S. Central Command in Saudi Arabia, and pool reports of interviews with U.S. pilots conducted at the time of the bombing. Feverish, fatal flight. Huddled in their homes beside the highway leading from Kuwait City to Iraq, Kuwaitis who had suffered through more than 6 months of brutal occupation listened with amazement to the chaotic sounds of a panicked Iraqi army on the move. In the black of night, tanks and armored vehicles rumbled. Car and truck horns blew. Voices cursed in Arabic. And every so often, there was a crunch of a traffic collision, then more curses and blowing horns. It was Monday night, February 25th, less than 48 hours into a ground offensive the Kuwaitis hoped would liberate their besieged country. Ever since the ground war began, there had been signs that the Iraqi troops were preparing to leave Kuwait. Sunday, for example, they had been seen loading television sets and other booty into stolen cars and trucks. Now the flight was feverish, as if they were racing to get to Iraq, recalled Manawar Saeed, a Kuwaiti education ministry employee who lived by the highway. No reliable figures, but Washington Post asserts that the PLO civilians were thieves. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, yeah, that is a subtle way of being like, yeah, they still kind of deserve it. Like, they're still bad guys. If you are a squishy liberal, like a rule follower, right? This gives you a little bit of a permission to like kind of look the other way, even when you recognize the brutality and devastation that these people are subjected to. Okay. Brown guys stealing televisions. Maybe they deserve to be fucking slaughtered, right? Near midnight came the first thunder of bombs. Iraqis on the highway redoubled their panic flight, only to exacerbate the traffic jam. Vehicles poured into the southbound lanes to head north and collided with one another. Hundreds of Iraqis jumped from their cars and trucks and ran off into the night, desperate for a place to hide. Some crouched in a nearby cemetery. Many saw refuges in empty houses. By morning, the highway was a mangled scene of destruction and death. Planes from the aircraft carrier USS Ranger buzzed the convoy again, dropping cluster bombs and whatever other munitions they could hurriedly load onto their attack planes. Marines unleashed 500-pound bombs on stranded vehicles. Air Force F-16A fighter bombers raced north in the bases in Saudi Arabia. There were so many planes striking the convoy, pilots said that the killing box had to be divided in half by air traffic controllers to avoid mid-air collisions. U.S. pilots and Kuwaiti civilians who witnessed the attack were struck by the scale of its destruction. A few felt pity for the Iraqi victims or expressed mixed feelings about the one-sidedness of the bombing, but most say they thought the Iraqis were getting only what they deserved. I think we're past the point of just letting him get in his tank and drive them back to Iraq and say, I'm sorry. U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel George Patrick told a media pool reporter that Tuesday, as he rested between missions against the convoy, I feel fairly punitive about it. A retreating enemy is still an enemy, law. Brother, this happens in war all the time. This does not mean that it is a totally moral and justifiable thing to do. You are opening up fire on an entire column filled to the brim with not just actual soldiers, okay, but it does have retreating forces, but also civilians as well. It's over at that point. They're done. They're packed up. They're going home. You're literally getting your rocks off by firing into them. That's it. There is no reason for that bloodshed, okay? That's the whole point. This is not fucking Call of Duty. Navy pilot Swigert, speaking to a reporter on the Ranger as he reloaded between attacks, said, one side of me says, that's right. That's right. It's like shooting ducks in a pond. Does that make me uncomfortable? Not necessarily, except there's a side of me that says, what are they dying for? For a madman's cause? And is that fair? Well, we're at war. It's the tragedy of war, but we do our jobs. Okay? I did not realize that there were this many people that actually still considered that to be a legitimate defense of this was mounted. Okay. The entire conversation is poison from the start. The concept of soldiers being reduced to legitimate targets in the first place is dehumanizing. If we're truly anti-war, we need to deconstruct the entire concept of reducing humanizing the tragedy of war. Yeah. Kuwaiti civilians living near the highway exploded, felt none of the pilots' ambivalence. These people who left Kuwait at the last moment were the security forces of Iraq, the people who really controlled the city. A Kuwaiti marketing executive said that they were the most brutal, most vicious people in Kuwait. We have no pity on them because they had no pity on anybody, shaping world perceptions. That Tuesday morning, while bombs exploded on the highway, this is like America going to people to like justify this action, for the record. Okay. So, if they were on the other side of the boundary, it would be considered. Here's the point. These are retreating forces that are very deliberately trying to get back into Iraq. The distinction here is, are they considered out of combat or not? A UN resolution 660 has come. There have been numerous instances past that point where there's like a point of no return, right? People are very obviously going into Iraq. Why can't you bomb them when they're in Iraq? Can you bomb them if they've already made it past the point of going into Iraq? The answer is no. That would be officially, legally past the point. where they are absolutely out of combat. It would be a violation of the Geneva Convention. While they are retreating, if it's a tactical retreat to go back and fight and resupply other forces, then they are valid targets. Okay? Technically. The issue is, it's very obvious that these guys were retreating alongside refugees and other civilians, many of them directly in civilian cars. Okay? This was not happening with like exclusively tanks and military gear and military combat gear, and everyone that's dying is like directly a part of the military. Okay? That's it. There is a very real argument here that this constitutes a war crime, like from an international legal definition as well. Many loudmouth liberal morons have no idea the gruesome atrocities committed by everyone that led to the Geneva Convention. You stupid fucks are not playing a video game. Yeah, I mean, they don't care, because when has America ever cared about? When has America ever cared about war crimes? We don't care. We do it all the time. There is no justification for it, and it still doesn't matter. Anyway. Yeah, I said the same thing. If Russia did this to Ukrainian troops who were retreating, you would I know for a fact that they would call it a war crime, which it would be. But their answer to that would be, well, Ukrainian forces weren't on Russian soil. Okay? Technically, they're not invading Russia and then running away. It still doesn't matter. Okay? It doesn't matter. Retreating forces that are out of combat, that are seeking to be out of combat, are not fucking fair play. Anyway, so look, Baghdad's pullout order posed. Oh, so this is the other part that I forgot. That Tuesday morning, while bombs exploded on the highway, senior U.S. military officials stationed far away at command headquarters in Riyadh wrestled with an unexpected problem: how to counter Iraq's surprise claim that the troops attempting to flee north from Kuwait were part of an orderly withdrawal from the Emirate designed to comply with United Nations resolutions. Surprise! How do we deal with these people that are actually retreating following an order? As the Iraqi vehicles rumbled and collided in the darkness on Monday night and early Tuesday morning, Baghdad radio announced that Iraq's government had ordered all of its troops to withdraw from Kuwait, ending months of defiant occupation. Baghdad's pullout order posed several problems for the U.S.-led military coalition. Continued Allied attacks raised the specter of a one-sided slaughter of retreating Iraqi troops, possibly complicating U.S. political problems in the Arab world. Perhaps more importantly, a successful Iraqi withdrawal from Kuwait would deprive the Allies of a chance to humiliate the Iraqi president Saddam Hussein, destroy the remnants of his army, and prevent him from posing a continued military threat in the region. By Tuesday morning, with Allied ground forces rolling into Kuwait and across southern Iraq, the total defeat of Iraq's military had become a clear but generally unstated U.S. war aim. The aim was politically sensitive because the United Nations resolutions under which the war was organized did not go beyond the liberation of Kuwait. They got pot shots, specifically for their own personal interest, one of which was the humiliation of Saddam Hussein, to attack retreating orders after a lawful retreat order had been given, retreating forces after a lawful retreat order had been given in compliance with a United Nations resolution, Resolution 660. Okay? Now, why did I go through all of this? Well, two reasons. One, because it once again shows that liberals are profoundly bloodthirsty psychopaths. Okay? And they also are very confident in the way that they cover this shit. Like they make it seem as though they are absolutely correct in their defense of America's bloodthirsty and psychopathic violence. Okay. It's ironic that he called me a bootlicker. I'm confused why people are so dick hard to defend a 30-year-old American atrocity. So fucking strange. The other reason why I'm covering this extensively, okay? There are other reason why I can't believe they cited Wikipedia to go against your claims. Yeah, Wikipedia, which literally reaffirmed my position, okay? But the other reason why I'm talking about this is because sometimes I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind because I'm literally correct. I am correct 100%. I'm both morally correct and I'm even correct within the legal framework that we supposedly follow, which we don't. And that's what's really frustrating. It's frustrating to be right, both on the moral front and also even on the legal boundaries that we have created. And yet, people are so passionately saying you're wrong. Okay? Like, there's two different fronts to argue this on. Is it valid? Are these valid targets? From a moral perspective, I don't believe they are. Okay? I don't think they are. Is it valid from a legal perspective? I don't think that's the case either. And that is what's frustrating. Why does it matter? You just disagree with certain things. Why does this matter? When has any country cared? Question mark. Brother, why should I ever cover anything then? This is, this directly contradicts what my mission is. My goal is to get people to open their fucking eyes and be a little bit more empathetic. I should just stop then. This is what's very, very frustrating. The level of propaganda within America is so saturated and ubiquitous that it's important to make public aware of it and educate them on its pervasiveness. Only then will you move hearts and minds. Yes. I think I just need to keep doing it. And I will continue to keep doing it, but it does definitely take a mental toll. You know what I mean? It kills me a little bit to see people, try to desperately try to put a community note on anything they possibly can. It's so funny. Like that they originally. Community note the reply with an irrelevant point, which still reaffirms enjoy your community note. I hate these animals so much. They have nothing to look forward to other than fantasize about America doing war crimes to victims of colonial violence with funds that could instead go to paying for schools, hospitals, and roads. Real leftists and anti-war advocates are with you, man, even if they get drowned out, Twitters and everything. No, I know. But you have to remember, okay? You do have to remember that this kind of sentiment is like broadly expressed on Twitter. And it certainly does, it's certainly frustrating. Because he's saying like, the Iraqi forces were attacked for invading Kuwait. It's like, bro, they literally they're retreating, dumbass. The account isn't Polish government funded, at least not anymore. It used to be. How long did we see community notes with the Breitbart articles as a receipt? Yeah. U.S. community notes, 70% of the time have U.S. Freedom Burger Institute as their only source. In hindsight, it is clear that these troops were totally routed and didn't pose any threat to the coalition forces at this point in the game. Also, it should be emphasized that they were retreating. However, retreating does not equal surrender. If they didn't surrender, then they were enemy combatants. Moreover, retreating or falling back is considered a tactical movement. What's your take on that? It's not. It's not a tactical movement or falling back when it's very clear that not every part of the convoy is directly military equipment. Not every part of the convoy is like armed military personnel. And beyond that, they're following the lawful order issued from Baghdad to retreat, like to go back to Iraq and end the occupation. Okay? It's a tactical movement if they are using main routes to reroute and resupply troops in other positions. It's not a tactical movement if the people that are using, the people that are bombing the retreating forces, even themselves personally understand that they're fucking retreating to go back to Iraq. Okay? I didn't send the tweet yet. There were civilians on the highway, man. Why are we rewriting the highway of death? I don't get it. It just don't. We are rewriting it because I said it. And if I said it, it must be wrong. And also, it's like America did it, so it must be right. This mentality is profoundly egregious, profoundly bloodthirsty, and it definitely does frustrate me because it spells trouble for the future of our politics. It shows me that the chatter is right. Retreating is considered a tactical movement. Still bad for the record, guys. That distinction is coming on the heels of following a lawful order as well. Okay, it's crazy. Americans love America's use of violence is fucked. The news accounts posted the last Iranian Shah. We should tell that news account posted the last Iranian Shah. We should tell you everything about what they believe in. Yeah. Yeah, they were tactically retreating out of Kuwait and into Iraq. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. For the record, that perspective on the highway of death, for those of you who don't know, was incredibly damaging. Okay? I think withdrawing is the word you're looking for and not with retreating. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay? I don't care about the distinction without a difference in that situation. Okay? They are leaving the battle. They are not leaving to go to a better position. Anyway. Read a fucking book, you moron. Lamau, bombing retreating military forces is not a war crime. And I am a bootlicker for not agreeing. Entire column full of civilian vehicles seeking to alongside personnel. How do you spell personnel? Oh, personnel. Shouldn't considered a valid military target, especially. Brother oversimplified with an epic. Yeah, he said, Lamau, bombing retreating military forces, not a war crime, you bootlicking authoritarian clown. You think retreating invasion forces are to be treated like non-combatants under the Geneva Conventions? That's absurd. Read a fucking book, you moron. Which book am I supposed to read? Mein Kampf? The fuck is this guy saying? Yeah, the book you should read is just Hitler. Libs just use words they don't understand like hogs. The highway of death was wrong perspective was a pretty mainstream liberal stance in 1991. How the fuck are liberals today in favor of it? Did we regress morally as a society? Yes. That is basically the whole point. Hope this isn't a tweet. No, this is from like Oz Katerji, Ukraine correspondent, British Lebanese conflict journalist and filmmaker based in Kiev. Okay? It's so odd that all the fucking NATO freaks always demonstrate how absolutely bloodthirsty they are at every opportunity they have. It's so strange to me. Okay? Don't get farmed for attention. I mean, this is a pretty big account and also has a decent amount of fucking likes on this tweet. It's not some random 50 like dickhead. Okay? I love the notion that I'm a bootlegger for not agreeing with the stance that an entire column full of civilian vehicles alongside military personnel and equipment shouldn't be considered a valid military target. Bootlegger for not agreeing with the stance that an entire column full of civilian vehicles alongside military personnel and equipment should be considered a valid military target. Hold on. Hold on. Successful. By Tuesday morning. Here, I'll just show the radio announcement. Yeah. Look at this. Look. As the bombing proceeded Tuesday, the U.S. responded to the Baghdad radio announcement by playing down evidence that the Iraqi troops were actually leaving Kuwait, emphasizing that Iraqi forces had to abandon their weapons and armor to avoid Allied firepower, and later arguing that Iraqi troop movements out of Kuwait were not a voluntary pullout, but a retreat under fire. Just chatters telling you not to post annoy you like you're literally a professional tweeter? Sometimes. You know? They just lied about it. The attack was not necessary to achieve military objectives. Exactly. I love that Tuesday morning while bombs exploded on a highway, senior U.S. military officers stationed in headquarters in Riyadh wrestled with an unexpected problem: how to counter Iraq's surprise claim that the troops attempting to flee north from Kuwait were part of an orderly withdrawal from the emirate designed to comply with the United Nations resolutions. Surprise, they're retreating. Here, I'm gonna just clip this part. What is it? Control Shift S? Or is it Windows Shift S? My Windows key doesn't work. What the fuck? Why is my Windows key not working? Huh. That's odd. Let's see. Oh, it worked. Okay. Okay. No, stop. Okay. I'll post that in the. I don't know. I actually kind of don't know how to deal with a lot of this stuff because they're so insane. With drawing. Withdrawing from their occupation, should it be considered a valid military target? It'd be as. This is why fascism is so successful. This is why fascism is so successful under a decline in material conditions. You cannot debate people out of this framework. They will support this endless bloodshed until their social and economic alienation is alleviated. You cannot win, sorry to say. You're trying to debate lure people away from supporting a fascist movement. I agree. Like, it's very, very frustrating. I think you might disagree with this, but I do think some of your more insane haters need to be kind of exposed for what they are. Less sway when they're embarrassing to be around. I think so too. What is this new version of the capitalism shirt? Ooh, this is sick. I love that. Yeah. Here, I'll just say this. I think this is fine. All right. I mean, I feel like this is fine. What's not fine, however, is forgetting to run the top of the hour ad break, which I forgot. So I'm going to run now. Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. That's the real war crime. Retreating forces in this chat got hit with a top of the hour ad break now. 5 people will read this. Okay, don't be defeatist, okay? If I get 5 people to read it and change their perspective, then that's awesome. I see that as a good thing. Dude, Matt got so many likes on this. Yeah, Dutch is a weird ass language. Anyway, one of the best things with your to do with your empathy-based approach to analysis is that you're helping an audience learn how to kill the fascists in their head. Keep growing, bro. Yeah. Anyway. I love the notion that I'm a bootlegger for not agreeing with the stance that an entire column full of civilian vehicles alongside military personnel and equipment withdrawing from their occupation shouldn't be considered a valid military target. This is the same ideological rot at the core of every reactionary movement. They're not arguing because your point is wrong. They're arguing because your point breaks on the conclusion they've already arrived at, and that conclusion is soothing. They're basically mad because that point makes their brain hurt. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't know how to deal with this. Like I don't know what the most effective way to deal with this is beyond just being like, Russia doing this to Ukraine, you would not be fond of. You know what I mean? Like, and no other, there's not a lot of like other versions of this story. Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. Should be considered a valid military target. They were complying with UN Resolution 660. Oh, I went over the. Yeah, if here's the thing. If Taliban shot American planes out of the sky while America was withdrawing, they would be screaming war crimes. Yes. The problem is that there is no like there's not a lot of like instances that you can point to. There's not a lot of instances that you can point to where like America is fighting a military with like at least some level of like equal power or more power. You know what I mean? That's it. Found an old ass article from 1992. Yeah. Kill them all and let God sort them out. This is like from the Crimson, Harvard Crimson, critical of the obviously involvement of the United States of America. You want to be UN, but doesn't care about UN laws, Lamont. I love the notion that I'm a bootlegger for not agreeing with the stance that an entire column full of civilian vehicles alongside military personnel and equipment withdrawing from their occupation should be considered a valid military target. This was controversial at the time. Wait, how many? This was even controversial then. Okay, there you go.